It's interesting to watch people, like, the position that I'm in, I can say whatever the hell I want because I have no financial vested interest in anything. So I can criticize everything, and it's fine. But as soon as you have, like, a herb company, depending upon your prerogative, you may have to curtail certain things you'll say that are critical of the materials that you're producing because you don't want to undermine your own business interests, Yeah, and you'll see it. It's like, I know a bunch of people that, like, they were totally critical of all kinds of things, and they started an herb company, and now they're not critical of anything. Yeah. And, the best that I can hope for frequently is that those people in private conversation with me will still be able to be critical. But,
one-on-one.
Yeah, and then I just look at it as like a hat thing, where it's like, all right, when you're doing, because, like, this is the way Dr. Yarnell is. Mm-hmm. Dr. Yarnell, when I talk to him privately, he'll criticize everything, and he's right with me, and he's like, we can't grow buplurum in the Pacific Northwest, and we can't grow astragalus, and we can't grow ephedra, and we did, and this sucks, and that sucks, and this sucks. And then when we're at Heron, and we have an order for like 80 gallons of this stuff, and we have shitty material sitting there, and it's like, we shouldn't use this shitty material, but we need to fill that 80-gallon order, and that shitty material that I think is shitty, it still satisfies the basic requirements that I wrote as the QA/QC manager. and so now I'm part of the system, actually, And and that's the hard part, because there's those things happening. There's this aspirational thing where you're like, 300 years ago, when there was like relatively speaking, there was like 600,000 people using this, the growing region is 20 miles, and there was 60,000 people that needed material from that 20-mile region. Yeah. Now there's 6 million people, or 60 million people that need, so now the growing region has expanded, the material is on a much larger spectrum of quality, and so then we move into the US and we look at like the GMP, and it's like purity and identity is established, but strength and composition is established by the manufacturer or the seller. You can set it wherever you want. There's pharmacopoeia standards according to the Chinese standard, but the U.S. has no standard pharmacopoeia. So there's no set standard anywhere in the U.S. Each manufacturer sets their own standard. And so anything goes, essentially. As long as your Cadenopsis is your Cadenopsis, you could grow it wherever you want and harvest it in the first year. I'm like, I think you should grow it at this elevation with this soil, and you should grow it for 3 years. That'll be the best quality material. There's no way of enforcing that standard. And if you do that, you're going to be outcompeted by everybody else that's not enforcing that standard, and you're also going to make your material prohibitively expensive, and you're probably going to put your company out of business. And so it doesn't have to be like a shit-talking kind of thing, like, well, because when you're in the business, you see all these other parameters, and you're like, shit, I'm working with all my friends, and my friends like these jobs, and like if everything had to be at this standard, our company would go out of business, and my friends would lose their jobs, and like, what the fuck then, And it's like, so how do we find this is a nice summary, actually, because for me, it's like a lot of the issues with quality and testing for quality, the idea in the West is that we'll have to do expensive chemical testing, and it has to be all about constituents. But as we study the material and we understand what the traditional indications for quality are, we can see the quality written on the surface of the material, because we know what quality looks like, and we can also appreciate a lot of it through flavor and aroma. And what actually comes out, like with something like Angelica sinensis, where they do this type of traditional assessment through doing grading with size and weight and how many of the roots fit in this basket, and it's like, and what is the and how much does it smell, and this and that. And we assess quality that way, and then when we do the high-performance liquid chromatography and we assess quality this way, the stratification is the same. And so that it's likely that we can use organoleptic methods to stratify in traditional ways that would be synonymous with what we would get with chemical. And so if we know the traditional quality evaluation methods that we're trying to apply today, we can likely forego expensive chemical tests. And that's one of the major barriers to people really wanting to apply rigorous quality standards to Chinese medicinals in America. And this is one of the things that gets lost, because when we look at the Cadenopsis stuff on the back, it says there's specifications and ranking, and the first class is a diameter of 1 centimeter, second is 0.8, and third is 0.6. And so when we dry this down, it's like this is going to be probably half the size it is now, and it'll be likely third class medicinal. And in China, in the markets, the quality is still stratified for a bunch of medicinals, but once it moves into the U.S. market, there's no stratification at all. And the outcome of that is frequently that we just get the worst quality medicinal because the market doesn't actually know how to appreciate higher quality medicinal. And so, like, it behooves us to, and that's one of the motivating forces for what I am trying to do here in my research, which is like, do chemical research, try to figure out stratification via chemical, and then try to determine that a key of macroscopic and organoleptic stuff, which can allow us to stratify the same way a chemical test would do, that will allow us to try to stratify the quality and evaluate the quality of the material in traditional terms, and so that we can try to continue to respect the quality of the medicinals. You know, a lot of people that are growing the material in the U.S., they only have access to English language material, so they don't know how to differentiate the quality of the medicinals, and they don't really know what they're growing or what the quality of it is. They just grow it and they say that it's that thing and they sell it. And there's a type of shift happening in the quality of the material, which is happening in this kind of shady area because there's not enough people that actually are able to address what's happening. Like, yeah, the Catanopsis is now a third the size that it used to be, and that's because it's no longer 3 years old, it's 1 year old. And the chemical constituent composition of that is totally different, you know, and it's like, instead of having your language is 5 words that you shout as opposed to 25 words that you speak in a normal language, you know, like it's a different dialogue, and that's like the therapeutic function, is this dialogue with physiology. That's, you know, that's, in the end, that's what we're trying to replicate. Chinese medicine is based upon traditional formulas, and the traditional formulas are like puzzles, where it's like each piece fits together with another piece, and it's like the puzzle pieces, each of those pieces of the puzzle is sort of like one of the spikes of constituent composition. It's like that piece is only this big because the concentration is low. That piece is this big. Well, the size of those pieces are what dictate how well it fits together with the other pieces in the puzzle. And that puzzle is designed for a certain piece of physiology. And those two things don't change across time and space. You know, time and space changes, but the expression of pathophysiology within that time and space is the target. And the intervention for that target is the formula. And so the formula structure and composition has to be conserved, and the way to conserve that is to try to conserve these indexes of the material. And that allows us as practitioners to stand on the shoulders of giants, the previous generations of practitioners, because if we let this type of shift occur, we're no longer standing on the shoulders of giants, because what we're creating doesn't actually have a linear relationship to what was created before and what the entire tradition of the medicine is based upon. We fall into this trap of almost having to reinvent the wheel. And that can be fun, but like as a clinician, I don't want to reinvent the wheel, because then I have to fail like 9 times out of 10 until I figured out what the wheel was, you know? All right, that's enough. I mean, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Oh,